Oh, good.
So welcome those of you who have arrived live and those of you who are watching the recording. Welcome to the Farside Business Builder. This month's theme is all about building a team, and I am very excited to introduce Thando to you this morning. Thando is the head of Evolving, and she has a lot to share with us about team building. Thando, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tamarin. Morning to you, morning to everyone who's joined us on the line. And of course, hello to those who will be getting a chance to listen to the recording. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Please, Thando, tell us more about you and then what you're teaching us today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Maybe just a bit around my background, and then we'll get into what we're looking at today. My background is actually in banking, where I had a variety of strategy, research, and operations roles prior to leaving corporate in 2015. In 2015, I actually began consulting, and I consulted for Evolving, which I later took ownership of in 2018. When it comes to Evolving, our focus is very much on resourcing of data analytics and decision sciences candidates. So we predominantly support the banks, consultant firms, and various other industries that make use of data and decision sciences. We also do advisory work around recruitment and talent management. So very much looking forward to engaging with everyone on the line today.
Awesome.
Awesome. So let's get to it. I am just going to share my screen, and I want you to confirm that everything is A-OK on your side, that you can see my screen clearly, and that's in slideshow view. Perfect. Okay. So as Tamarin has mentioned, today, I've been tasked with talking about building a team and joining the series Building a Team, and in particular, when it's the right time to do so. And I'm sure you can appreciate that this is a pretty broad topic, and especially because we're all at different stages of our business. So I think let me get a lay of the land, perhaps from those that are on the line, just a show of hands, or if you can just indicate in the chat for me, how many of you already have a team, or if you might be an independent consultant or a sole proprietor at the moment. Just give me an indication. Okay, so independent at the moment. Perfect. Okay, so then I'm going to do my best to try and meet you at the point of your need and the point of where you're at the moment. But if you feel something is missing, or if you have specific questions, or you'd like specific feedback around your business, then I invite you to get in touch with me after the session, and I'll share my details at the end, of course. But in terms of rules of the road for the session, I'm going to ask Tamarin to just keep an eye on the chat box for me, because while I'm in share screen mode, I obviously won't be able to see some of the comments and the emojis and all those things. So if Tamarin will just keep an eye there, I'll ask that you put any questions that you have, or comments, or builds even, comments around what's being discussed. You're welcome to pop those into the chat. There will be an opportunity about halfway, as well as at the end, for us to look at some questions. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So let's get to it. Oopsie. And somebody just ended their show.
Oh dear.
One moment, let me reshare my screen there.
I was in a networking meeting the other day, and there was some issue, and I said, it's actually got to the point where it's not a Zoom meeting if there isn't at least one technical difficulty during.
Exactly. We definitely have managed to get used to it over time, right?
We have.
Okay, so look, we've all come here today having taken very different paths, and perhaps some have been a bit more deliberate than others. Some of you might have always wanted to be your own boss, and others might have landed here almost by accident. So no matter how things came to be, I'm sure you can agree with me that entrepreneurship is not for the faint-hearted. A lot of times it can feel like you're climbing a very steep mountain. And as entrepreneurs, I guess the journey can be quite lonely. And it's characterized, with us really asking ourselves a lot of questions. So in our time together today, I'm hoping to be able to address some of the questions that you have, especially around hiring concerns or when it comes to building a team and things like that. And these are some of the specific questions that we're going to look at over the next hour or so. Some of you may have heard of author and speaker James Clear. He's written about habits, decision-making, and continuous improvement since about 2012. And in his book, Atomic Habits, there's a quote that really stands out for me, especially given where we were as a business at the time of me coming to know this book. And that quote says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." Now, when we talk systems, it's not just tech systems, but your processes, routines, and this applies both on a personal and a business level as well. Now, what does this mean? I actually love how Medium's book review sums it up. And they say, if you want better results, forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. Goals are just the end product of results you want to achieve, whereas your systems are about processes that lead to those results. And there's definitely a place, of course, for goal setting. And I probably would not be the first person to tell you, though, that hope is not a strategy. The question is, what systems do you have in place when it comes to building your business? Or alternatively, what systems do you have in your personal life that enable you when it comes to your business? Because to wish for things to get better is not enough. You've got to mind your systems. Now, I want you to keep this in mind as we explore a couple of concepts this morning. And ask yourself three things as we go through this morning's session. The first would be, where am I, or where are we at the moment? Where do we want to be? And lastly, do we have the know-how or the tools to get to where we want to get to? Are we in agreement?
100%.
Awesome. Okay. So would you believe me if I told you that how you structure and organize your team is a form of innovation? Maybe let me rephrase that question. How many of you would believe that statement to be true? You can just put up your hands. Where if I tell you how you structure and organize your team is a form of innovation, how many of you believe that to be true? Okay, awesome. So indeed, that is the case. Over 20 years ago, Dublin, a global innovation firm, they developed their 10 types of innovation framework. And that's what you see on the screen at the moment. And this framework allows us to basically analyze innovations in business. It's basically, you can use it to evaluate and enhance your innovation projects or to analyze competitors or market trends. And the basic premise is that innovations can be divided into three categories, which you see on the screen. The blue, which is configuration, which talks to the setup or the innermost workings of your organization or your business systems. The orange part talks about your offering or your core product or service. And then experience looks at various kind of customer-facing elements like brand, channel, service, or how you actually go about engaging your customers. Now, successful organizations will typically use multiple or a combination of innovation models at the same time to strengthen their position. But I actually want to draw your attention to configuration, and specifically the second block within configuration, which talks about structure, and it talks about structure innovation. Now, essentially, structure innovation is about how you organize and align your assets and your talents within your organization. And Dublin actually described these structure innovations as the type of innovations that are focused on organizing your assets. And these can be tangible or intangible, so hard, human assets or forms, but organizing these in unique ways that create value. So ideally, these kinds of innovations will also help to attract talent to the organization, because you just find yourself with a really productive work environment, or you foster levels of performance within your organization that your competitors can't imitate. Or at least they can't imitate it easily. So your structure innovations actually become quite a source of competitive advantage. And since they are a little bit difficult most times for competitors to copy, because they usually require, the organization to change in some way, or maybe some investment or support from your company leaders. Now, organizing in unique ways to create values. I like you to think about things like incentive systems, where you encourage people to work towards certain goals, or having corporate universities where you basically have like some sort of learning hub for the people within your organization or within your space to come and learn, a bit like what Tamron set up here in terms of the business builder. Or having some sort of knowledge management, which is where you catalog all your information and your insights that can be easily shared or used within the business by everyone involved. Or you could think of things like outsourcing, where you might use a specific firm to handle specific tasks and projects that's in their area of expertise. So you actually leverage off those areas of expertise. So let's actually look at a couple of examples. Talking about Google, we all know Google. They implemented something called a 20% project policy. And this actually allows employees to spend 20% of their time working on personal projects that could be beneficial to the company. Now, you can imagine how much more productive and satisfied the employees are when they get to work towards something that they're driving and that they have ownership of, right? So that's Google's version of their structural innovation. Whole Foods, that's also a nice example. They are a supermarket chain, and they're viewed as a kind of high trust organization. So they've got a decentralized system and work very much on a principle of transparency. And that means that each department, anywhere that they're based, each department within the store is given responsibility of making their own decisions. And the idea here is that literally they can see everything about everybody. So sales, profitability, performance, salaries, bonuses, everything. There is nothing that is hidden in this organization. And as a result, the employees actually strive to outperform one another, and they compete for profitability. So that's one way of looking at a form of innovation. If you look at Zappos, Zappos is an online retailer, and they were acquired by Amazon in 2009. Now, in 2013, their CEO actually reorganized the company into something called a holacracy. And that's basically a decentralized management system. That means no one has a job title, there are no managers, no hierarchy, basically. So the teams are run like small independent businesses. So they manage their own budgets and all sorts of things. Now obviously, holacracy and the example that we just looked at Whole Foods are kind of one extreme. The reality is there are an infinite number of management structures that actually exist between these. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about these later, especially for those who are asking themselves, how should I be structuring my business? How should I be structuring my team? So we'll talk a bit about that later. But coming back to some of these examples, I like the One Leap one. This is a UK-based innovation consultancy. And what they do when they go into clients and when they go onto client projects, they actually set up a semi-autonomous unit of entrepreneurs inside their client company. So these are entrepreneurs that are not linked at all to the organization. And they basically implant, if you're familiar with FMCG, you'll know sometimes companies have implants in warehouses and things like that. So they basically implant these entrepreneurs for about 6 weeks in their client company. And they're the ones that manage the engagement and the coordinate the activities between the entrepreneurs and internal management of their clients. But what happens with this arrangement is that it allows for the clients to innovate across the board without draining their resources, because basically the client gets to continue to focus on kind of their day-to-day operations while the entrepreneurs do what they love and innovate on behalf of the company. So that's another form of innovation. Now, bringing it home, discovery. Prior to COVID, employees could actually choose 1 day a week to work from home. I can recall some friends of mine that work at Discovery that really enjoyed that model, for example. And since then, I mean, with the advent of COVID, we've seen a lot of different types of innovations, even locally. There's been organizations who decided that there are no meeting days, for example. So those are just some examples, and there are many, many more. I'm sure you can think of a few on your side. But as you can imagine, some of these things are quite large scale, difficult to plan and execute, and especially in large corporates. However, when they are done correctly, the results can really increase efficiencies and also give you very satisfied employees. So ideally, such innovations will enable you to attract talent to the organization, where you really have a productive working environment. And obviously your competitors can't easily match what you do. Now, this kind of innovation can also cater for people who are looking for something different, right? Maybe they've been working for a while and now they want something with a little bit more flexibility, where you actually focus on output or productivity. These kinds of innovations can work well for people looking for that. And especially in this day and age where we're seeing that employees' expectations are shifting, and companies are starting to look for ways to actually meet their employees' needs in this regard. So what does it mean for us as business owners, and especially as small business owners? We have a very unique opportunity to be creative in this instance. You can actually set your business up as a great place to work. And because of your ability to influence and actually get things done quickly, you can very quickly implement a talent-focused innovation that can actually take your business to the next level. Now, I obviously don't know your individual businesses, and I don't want to assume, but ask yourself what that could look like for you. How would you create an ideal place to work? And how exciting it could be to be joining and working at your organization. So let's take a look at some organizational structures. Now, I won't spend too much time here for fear of getting lost in a little bit too much theory, but I do want to stress that there are different types of structures that exist, and you need to decide for yourself, of course, what best suits your business. Is it a simple line structure? Is it a divisional structure, maybe where you're organized according to functions, so marketing, operations, etc.? Or is it perhaps committee-based or even project-based? Or it might even be a hybrid type of structure. So no matter what structure you choose, it must best serve your business. It must be aligned to your strategy, and it must be an enabler when it comes to fueling growth. Now, you might have already decided on a specific structure, or you might need support in terms of designing this, and we're obviously happy to help. But there's a really great write-up that is readily available that was authored by Smriti Chand. And Tammin, I'm just going to ask her to just share the link in the chat because it's very easily accessible, and it's a short read. But what it does is that it explains these 8 organization types and basically the pros and cons of each. So if you do need assistance, once you've gone through this in terms of structuring your team or understanding what could be best for you, I'm definitely happy to engage post the session. Now, no matter how or no matter which structure you choose, or even if you find yourself moving between structures for any reason, hiring decisions are going to need to be made at some point. Now, before we talk about hiring, let's take a look at when you should not be hiring. So let's start there. So when not to hire, and I'm going to say, if you remember one thing from my session, let it be this particular slide, when not to hire, because the reality is if you hire too early, you're likely to bring yourself cash flow problems. And I can tell you now, a worker who's got nothing to do that you have to pay is a recipe for disaster. And I must say, I actually get quite nervous when some of my non-corporate clients actually tell me they want to make a hire, but they don't have a stipulated budget for that role. And I get nervous because cash flow is everything, especially if you're in the kind of early stages of your business, and you've got to know your numbers, especially when it comes to the hiring decisions, because you might not always see the return immediately on your hire. So definitely make sure you don't do hire in such a way that could lead to cash flow issues. The other thing is management, right? Managing other people brings added stress. So if you're not ready to manage people or lead other human beings who have their own desires and goals and stresses and life and everything else, don't hire just yet. Okay, take the time to look at refining perhaps your skills in terms of dealing with those sort of dynamics. The other thing is that sometimes a hiring decision is made in the heat of a very stressful moment. So maybe you landed a project and you now have more work than you can humanly handle, or you just need to get a body behind a desk. You just need to get somebody hands on deck. You need someone to help. Now I can tell you, a hasty decision that's born out of desperation is very rarely a good one. So your hiring choices must be thought out thoroughly. And not be something that you do out of desperation or feel rushed to do. The fourth one would be not having a clearly defined role. In more technical terms, you might say job description, but essentially when you don't know exactly what you want your new hire to do. Now, you might feel like you need help. You might be at a point where you're saying, okay, look, I cannot take all of this, but you need to know exactly what that type of help is going to look like, because I can tell you it causes great levels of frustration on all sides when there's a lack of clarity. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that things must be perfect or you must have all the answers, but try to focus on hiring when the tasks that need to be completed fall under a specific skill set. So for example, let's say we're talking about creating products. You might need a developer for that, or someone in a research and development team. Or if it's marketing your product, you might then need someone with those expertise, or supporting your product or supporting your business. So you might need an admin role. So when you have specific tasks that fall under a particular skill set, that's when you can potentially look to hire. Then the last one there, when you've only interviewed one person. Now, there's always a temptation to take the first person who comes along. And I want to implore you, I mean, you really need to go through the process of interviewing, and I encourage you to do so. Not only will you learn a lot about yourself and about your market, but also, and your own position, but you'll understand what is available out there. And that way, if your first applicant was an absolute rock star, you'll be sure when you actually make that hire. The reality is that timing is everything. I mean, we spoke about the dangers of hiring too early, but if you do leave it too late, you could miss a critical moment, either in the market, maybe for the release of your project or something that you want to do, or you could find yourself inundated with work and projects that you cannot get done on your own. So a good rule of thumb on the bottom right of the screen is to hire when you see that your new resource will help you either make money or save money. One of the two, either make money or save money. So let's talk about then when we should be hiring. And what I'm going to do, because we're understanding that we're at different stages on this call, and we're at different points, what I'm going to do is look at the different stages of a business life cycle and some of the hiring consideration across these, because understanding the stage that your business is in is one of the key things to consider when making your hiring decision. Now, mind you, I didn't say how long you've been in business, or how big your business is from a revenue perspective, etc. Rather, understanding the stage that your business is in is something that is really key to making this decision around hiring resources. Now, you should all be familiar with the visual or something similar that's on the screen. Is basically a traditional business life cycle. And essentially, your hiring, as I say, must reflect the life stage of your business, or alternatively, the transition that you're looking to make. And this is because while there's certain things that remain constant throughout the life cycle, each stage might demand a different set of technical skills to ensure that you can gear up to actually get to the next stage or level. But also outside of the technical skills, from a character, mental, emotional, and even psychological perspective, your hires must be able to thrive in the life stage your business is in, and then take things, of course, to the next level as we all want. For example, it doesn't help to hire someone who, and I'm going to use an absolutely arbitrary example, but someone who maybe prefers structure or leveraging off a large team during a stage that can be filled with ambiguity, or when you have limited resources, like your early or introduction stage, right? Whilst it's really thrilling and exciting to start and be expanding the business, I personally know it comes with a lot of anxiety. So what I want to share now are not really kind of hard and fast rules, as every business is different, but rather guidelines that can help you as you move through the cycle. So let's get to this. We're going to take it from left to right. So starting with the introduction or the launch stage. Now here, you're introducing yourself to the world. Everything about your business, your brand, your name, your product, unknown. And you probably have to kind of really shout really loudly to get recognized in the market. So you're battling through that process. Usually the stage, we find sales are still quite low. I mean, you might have a few clients or kind of an early adopter audience, but at this stage, it's usually the most difficult for a new business owner. And things at this point could really go either way here, right? Either you succeed or you fail. So what is the main focus when it comes to hiring during this period? When you're new in the market, it's important to make people, one, aware of your company and the values. You basically are your company, and you have to be a true ambassador and sell your vision to potential joiners. Now, at this stage, because we typically find there is little, and I'd venture to say no profit at this time of in the stage of building, prioritizing is absolutely key. And because you have limited resources, you really need to be clear about what it is that is going to be fundamental to moving your business forward. So it's not about the nice to haves at this point. It's about functionally, practically what you need to move forward. Now, only you can make that decision for yourself. But what I will encourage is that you consider other options during this particular period, because it is a time where there's a lot of uncertainty. Yes, there's excitement, but there's a huge amount of uncertainty. For instance, do you actually need to make a hire, or could it be worthwhile considering a collaboration partner or even a co-founder? Or could you simply outsource the task? If you really feel that making the hire is the best route for you, why not test it first? Instead of hiring a full-time employee, maybe hire a contractor, because this is less costly and it's potentially a little bit less risky, because you can look at different short-term arrangements to kind of test the waters. So those are some of the options that are available to you. However, if you opt to make a hire, I would imagine that you've decided that the new resource could either make you money or save you money, as we discussed earlier. But I'd like to throw in another dimension here. What about saving you time? Because you might want to think of it as creating time even, because at this stage, you are very hands-on in your business. It's kind of all about you. You're wearing every hat, as Tamron and I often used to joke, you are everything. And so having additional help can free you up to focus on your core business or other revenue generating activities. So this is a time where you can start asking yourself, what are the things that I can let go of that are maybe not core to my business, but you need the support in order to move forward. The next stage is the growth stage. Now, as time goes by, people will start to learn about you, your company, and your brand, and maybe they'll acknowledge you, and etc. So all these things are happening. It's an exciting time, and it allows your business to enter the growth stage. Now, this stage is interesting because even though you find that your sales are increasing, it's still a little bit low on the profit side. Your costs are also still ridiculously high. And why is that? That's because the main focus at this stage is to gain and win market share, right? You're trying to expand, you're trying to build, you're trying to grow. And since you established your business in stage one, that introduction stage, your focus now is really on scaling up, right? And that requires investment. So we often see a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners reaching out to funders during the stage to actually support some of the expansion initiatives. And we'd see a lot more investment typically at this stage. So you're either investing in people, or you're investing in tools to automate your processes, any number of things. And that's because mostly in that introduction stage, you didn't really have enough money to do all those things. But most of the burden of running the business actually sat on you as a business owner. But now, if your business is growing, you're actually able to hire and train employees, first and foremost, to manage your day-to-day functions. That should almost be your priority in that growth stage. Hiring and training people who can help you with that day-to-day stuff. And with the staff in place, you'll then be able to, once again, focus on marketing the business or managing people or growing or whatever it might be. But it actually just allows you to turn your focus comfortably to other areas. And that's important because you're trying to get to this third stage, the maturity stage, right? And you can find the maturity stage lasts for a couple of years. And because of in the hope that there's still demand and for your products and services, etc. And the idea here, though, is within the maturity stage, you should be able to rely on your employees. And they should be very comfortable with managing, not just doing some aspects, but managing the day-to-day operation so that you can, as a business owner, kind of step back and focus on some of the longer-term goals. Now, you typically find that this stage requires hiring of what we would call subject matter experts, especially if you're looking to expand your business, because oftentimes at this stage of the business, you start going down a path of innovation. What could we be doing differently? How could we introduce new products or services or whatever to either increase customer interest or drive loyalty? So it's a very, very interesting time because it's also highly competitive at this time, because when you're in the maturity stage, this is usually the time when organizations are trying to poach your talent, or you might find that your employees might want to explore something that you can't give them. Or they even might want to start their own businesses. So in maturity stage, this is where you really want to be focusing on things like employee value proposition, retention strategies. They become absolutely paramount at this stage. So if you don't already have these in place before you get to the stage, you're definitely going to need them in this stage. But what's important about that, or what's really helpful there, is that as you work on things like your employee value proposition and your retention strategies, you actually can use those to continue to attract the right talent to sustain your business. And that's what it's really about at this point. Now, just looking quickly at that final stage, the decline stage, a bit of a funny name, especially, if you've birthed this business from those infancy stages and you don't really want to think of it kind of tapering off. But let's talk about it a little bit, because running a business is a dynamic process. And goodness, I can speak from experience here, where you're always fine-tuning and adapting to external factors, like the financial environment or how things are changing or how, what trends might be out there. And we're actually going to talk about trends a little bit later. But you're doing this, you're adapting so that you can actually be sustainable and kind of stand the test of time, right? But your decline doesn't always necessarily mean that's the end of the business. It could just mean refinement. And that's why some people actually call the stage the transition stage, because it's a period where an organization must deal with change inevitably. So for example, that transition might be positive or negative. It could be driven by things like sales are declining. You find that there are costs that are just constantly there. There's changing market conditions that impact the business. That's something we experienced in evolving, where we had change in how our clients wanted to be serviced and things like that. Shifts in customer preferences, those sort of things can bring you to the stage. Maybe a little bit earlier than you might have liked, but they will bring you to the stage. But it also is an opportunity, once again, for rapid growth. And that's where we see sometimes what we call this life cycle extension, or this transition to the positive of maybe changing what you offer or having some innovation that you do, etc. The other thing is, the reality is business is all about people. And even yourself as a business owner, you might find that there are changes in your personal circumstances that bring you to this particular stage. And so, you might need to either choose, do we expand, or do we look to slow down, or do we look to sell perhaps the business, or whatever it might be. Either way, at all points of the journey, you want to be very, very clear around South African labor legislation, which basically governs all the HR practices here, and actually make sure that you follow the correct procedures and do things the right way within the ambit of the law, especially in South Africa. It can be extremely costly to find yourself kind of trying to deal with some of those things retrospectively. So as far as possible, get the support that you need to make sure that you're geared up in terms of labor law and hiring across these stages. What might also be interesting is if you're in that growth and maturity stage, there might be opportunities for mergers or acquisitions and those sort of things. You either might be acquired, or you could be considering acquiring a business or another entity. And think about the hiring considerations that come with that, because now you're absorbing a whole host of people that you didn't necessarily have in your structure to begin with. And you've got to think about how you embed culture and things like that. So there's a lot of considerations from that perspective. But all this to say, with each stage, there are new challenges, and a business owner needs to address these challenges in order to protect and grow their business. And most importantly, for every stage or level within the business cycle, it will demand a different or a new version of you. And you need to think about that and what that looks like. So make sure that throughout these stages, you actually focus on surrounding yourself with the right people, people with the correct skill sets to manage each stage and actually prepare your business to move to the next one. So I just want to take a moment to stop, pause, and reflect. I have said a lot. I want to just check if we're all still together, if there might be any questions, comments, thoughts. Tamron, if you can just check the chat box for me. Any comments or thoughts that might want to be shared?
Thando, there's no comments or thoughts yet, although people can start typing now if they have them. But I have been thoroughly ensconced in your training so far. I'm finding it very helpful, actually. I think your explanations of the stages of business are really, really good, and a good review of what we need at each stage, because it's important to recognize that your needs change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And while your needs are changing, Tamron, as a business owner, so too are the needs of your employees at each of those stages, and the leader or manager that they need. And I'd like to say leader rather than manager, the leader that they need at each of those stages. So absolutely. Look, if there are no questions in the interest of time, I think let's move on. I want to just touch quickly on the employee life cycle now. So we've explored the business life cycle, but now I want to take a look at things from an employee perspective, or your resourcing perspective. Now, every person that comes into your business, whether it's for a short or a long term, they're going to go through these 6 stages. So let me talk to them very quickly before we move on. The first would be attraction. Now, this is basically the very instant that a potential applicant is exposed to your brand, or that they learn about your company. That's attraction, right? And then they become interested, and they potentially undergo a recruitment process, which is where you take them from being an applicant to an employee. Then once they're an employee, You want to welcome them warmly. You want to embed them in your company culture, your ways of work, all those sort of things. So you need to have quite a clear onboarding process, right? And then you want to look at how you retain and motivate those employees and how you keep them satisfied. And it might be financial, non-financial ways, but there's various retention strategies that we can look at. And some of our partners actually assist with, work in that space and making sure that your employees are motivated. So that's something we can certainly help with. Then there's career development, because at the end of the day, part of being a motivated employee, no one is, things are not always static. People have their own goals, they have their particular needs, etc., that you want to be meeting. And here, when we talk about development, it could be enhancing an individual's skills, or it could be around helping them move to a different level. So be it in terms of management, those sort of things, depending on the structure of your business, of course. But the idea here is really about how can you enrich and empower your staff. So we look at development. Then we look at separation. Now, this is inevitable. So either it happens by, unfortunately, someone passing away, potentially, or it could be, reaching the retirement end of work life, or they're moving on to another entity. Now, why do I touch on these stages? It's critical to understand, because no matter what stage your business is in, when we looked at that business life cycle, no matter what stage your business is in, you're going to have to manage employees through this cycle. And there's some important considerations here. And the first is, are your recruitment and HR policies robust and fit for purpose? Do they protect you, protect your business interests, protect your employees? Secondly, from a culture perspective, are you adequately using opportunities across this employee life cycle to embed your culture, to enable people to understand your vision and really get behind that vision, and you almost own it? Are you using the opportunities across this life cycle to do that? And then the third thing is, do you have the right support or structures or people, even systems, to adequately meet the needs of your employees at each of the stages within the life cycle? Now, if you answered yes to these questions, then, well, you're well on your way. But if it's a no, I would implore you to get in touch with the right people to help. It could be us as Evolving, it could be another recruitment and talent partner, but these things you have to get right, because good and productive and motivated employees are truly your business's greatest assets. And those are things that you can manage throughout this cycle. Now, this session would not be complete without exploring some of the key trends, things that are going on globally. We're seeing these play out locally that actually kind of impact our hiring decisions. Now, we saw COVID bring the future forward, and it really got us thinking, what does the future of work look like? Especially because we had to rejig our operating models to align to regulations and protect our business and manage employee well-being, or while continuing to deliver value to clients, right? Now, yesterday I attended the Consumer Goods Council Summit held here in Joburg, and I was just reminded of all the trials and tribulations that we faced as a nation over the last 2 years. So I can say, if your business is still standing after COVID, riots, continuous power supply shortages, I salute you. Really, it's just been absolutely amazing that we, one, have gone through something like that and that we've actually survived. So kudos to you. But here's the thing. In the midst of the external factors, we've got to consider how people approach work and how they want to work has changed. And this fundamentally changes how businesses engage, attract, retain, and even develop some of that talent. And this changing landscape essentially is what we call the war for talent. And there's a number of reasons for this. I mean, we see heightened competition, for example, especially with the rise of small and medium-sized businesses, like ours. There's lots of options now, or large corporates have a lot of resources. So there's options for employees, right? The other thing is job mobility. is increasing, and employees are really not afraid of exploring job opportunities that are either virtual or even abroad. They immigrate and those sort of things. And at the same time, the younger generations that are entering the workforce are kind of far less interested, should I say, in traditional employment and positions and things like this. And this obviously links to the conversations we've been having around hybrid working structures and providing options for people, either to come into the office only when they need it or be fully remote and things like that. So all of those things have resulted in a war that's going on for talent, and something to keep in mind. I actually recently sat in a session that was delivered by Dr. Giselle Williams of Kryptonite. Kryptonite is a specialist change management consultancy, and they advise executives all over the world. And one of the concepts that they were exploring in that session when we were looking at the talent revolution is the fact that organizations borrow people from their lives to contribute towards their goals. I'm going to say that again. Organizations borrow people from their lives to contribute towards their goals. So if we're borrowing people, do we really need them there 8 to 9 hours a day? I mean, I'm going to use myself as an example. In addition to my role at Evolving, I'm a director of operations and program management for the South African office of a global B2B research firm. And I do this on a part-time basis. So basically, I give a few hours of my day, of my time, to help the business achieve its goals. The head office is based in Toronto, Canada, and I'm here in Joburg. It's a complete paradigm shift, right? Employees versus contributors. Do you need people full-time in your business, or are you actually looking for people who will contribute, perhaps in short stints, perhaps in a short format manner, whatever it looks like? Do you need employees or do you need contributors? And I encourage you, especially at this stage of business and the way the world is going, to look at that and consider that a little bit. That last point there around boomerang employees, that basically talks about someone who's left an organization or the workforce entirely, and is rejoining maybe to help with specific tasks or projects, or maybe they want to even return to full-time employment. I mean, there's a lot of socio-economic factors that might drive you to return to work, and this is definitely on the rise. But the takeout is this. If we keep in mind that work is something you do, not somewhere you go, you can really set up your business to benefit from some of these trends. And as a small business owner, you can really find cost-effective manners and ways of building up your team and making your hiring decisions. So let's wrap it up. I hope we are still all together. I'm going to ask you a question, actually. I think if you think of the perfect team or the ideal team, what are some of the things or the words that come to mind? You're welcome to pop them into the chat.
Thando, I'm assuming I'm going to read them for you anyway, so I'm just going to say mine. I
Sure.
think of efficiency,
okay,
and cohesiveness.
Awesome. Absolutely. I love that word. Efficiency and cohesiveness. Absolutely. Other things around that could be synergy, trust and alignment, etc. So, I mean, these might be some of those that came to mind. But as you rightly say, Tamrin, that idea of cohesiveness is so important. And essentially how we bring people into our organization can actually set the tone for the type of team that you're trying to build. So ideally one that is collaborative, cohesive, as you say, and working towards a common unifying objective. So I want to close off our time together here by actually looking at a few ideas that you can take away, things that you can do to actually enhance how you bring people into your team, how you recruit talent. Now, some of these you probably are doing already, and it's just a matter of refining them, right, or refining the approach. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to talk to all of them, but I do just want to highlight a few and maybe give you some examples and something to think about around them. The first would be treating candidates like your best customers. Now, a candidate's first impression of your company is absolutely critical. You know, they say first impressions last, right? It's important to make them feel just as excited as you are, right, about being considered for the role. But the reality is that if they're hired at the end of the day, they're going to be ambassadors for your business. So they're even going to be an extension of you. You want to make sure you value their time, you value their input, even while they're still a candidate, right? And even while they're still going through that interview process. The other thing is using social media. If I don't know if you've been under a rock, if you haven't been using social media, but it's interesting to notice that social media has been used by a lot of people in their personal spaces, or even in some aspects of advertising their business, but not necessarily when it comes to recruitment. Now, social media is a cost-effective, really a fantastic recruiting tool. So if you are not using it already, I encourage you to use it specifically for this purpose, because it really helps you to share vacancies into your network, and also encourages some dialogue, right, around the opportunity and your business. And you even get an opportunity to share a little bit about your business as you're doing so. So even if you reach people that are not interested in the role that you're hiring for, then, you know, it's possible that they might know someone who's a good fit. Plus, as you share photos, videos, whatever it might be, things from your company or about your company, you can actually start to show people what your brand is all about and actually give your potential applicants a glimpse into your company culture. Like we spoke about that attraction earlier. It's not about the first time you reach out to a person. It's about the first time they come into contact with your organization or with your brand. Then implementing employee referral programs. This one is quite an interesting one, especially if you already have a team, even if it's a small one, because it's a small world. Great people usually make a habit of surrounding themselves with other highly capable, brilliant professionals. So this, you know, might happen organically, that your employees are referring the roles that you, or people for the roles that you have. But if you have an existing team, I encourage you to be deliberate about getting your staff to share their vacancies. Then job descriptions. I definitely want to talk about this one. This is one of the most important parts of the hiring process. It should not be taken lightly. If you need assistance with job descriptions, we're very happy to help. But here's a couple of things to think about. The title, specific as possible, accurate, very clear in terms of what you want the person to be able to do. Make it attractive, you know, maybe have a little summary that talks a little bit about your role, the company, etc. Don't skimp on the essentials. So make sure you've got your responsibilities listed there, both hard and soft, so your technical and non-technical skills, or some of your kind of softer skills, if you will. Anything that a person needs to be doing day to day, you want to have that in there. And then use the opportunity to highlight your culture. So it's another way to kind of do brand building, you know, your job descriptions and having those out in the market. The last one I want to talk about there is actually number 10. And that is including peers in an interview process. And sometimes the best person to interview a new recruit or a new candidate is someone who is working in the same or a similar role. And because this employee, I mean, they already know what it takes to excel in the position and can verify whether the candidate has the experience that you're looking for, the skills, etc. But what I found really works well with this process or this approach is that it can help with expectation management, because your current employees are probably the best place to be able to give an accurate description of what goes on day to day in the business and actually help your new hire understand what they can expect if they are hired. So these are just 10 strategies or tips and tricks or things that you need to be doing to enhance your own recruitment strategy, no matter what stage you're at in terms of the business life cycle. Now, if you need assistance with any of this, get a recruitment partner. Be it an agency, be it hiring a resource to look after it. It is something that you really want to take seriously within your business, because as I said, when you bring in people that are excited about your organization and they are now motivated employees, you really are building the greatest asset within your business. So on that note, I'm going to hold it there. Thank you for your attention. And of course, open up the floor to any questions, comments, thoughts, anything at all. And I look forward to engaging with you all either in this session or offline as we carry on the discussion.
Thank you so much, Thando. That was amazing. I don't know if I've ever had that much value in one go. And I see Jody Lee also said really insightful. Thank you. That was a comment I didn't read to you earlier. But yeah, it was incredibly insightful. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. And it was really, really great to engage with you ladies. Yeah.
Are there any questions out there? Nobody? Everyone good? You did such a good job. No one has questions.
Well, look, I know sometimes people can get a little bit shy to talk. I mean, I've shared my details here. Get in touch. I'm happy to have this conversation offline, LinkedIn, or reach out to me over email. I'm happy to look at any specific queries you might have and actually just help where we can.
Awesome.
Thando, I would definitely want to maybe just have a bit of a chat with you offline. Yeah.
Sure, right. Lovely,
like
lovely. Look forward to hearing from you. I think that
there might be an opportunity to. Is there a way would I need to take a screenshot to get your details? Is it in the chat?
I've actually shared the deck with Tamron, so I'm happy for her to forward to all who are on the line and make it available. So my details will definitely be readily available.
It will be cool. Underneath the recording in the member portal. Also, I did pop Thando's details in the chat, Ray, so you can find them there. But Thando also has an expert profile in the member portal. So there's 3 ways that you can contact her. And anyone who's not sure how to get into the member portal can just email me as well, and I will just share the deck.
Thanks, Tamron.
No problem.
That's me as well. I need some training on the portal and the Facebooks and the stuffs.
Can be done. Awesome. So thank you so much, Thando, for everything. Thank you to everyone who attended today. I really appreciate you coming. Next week, I am training on leveraging outsourcing. So if you are in that stage 1 that Thando spoke about, where you know you need help, but you're not quite ready to hire, then please do join my session next week. If you are joining us today as a guest, I'm just putting another link in the chat. That is our 30-day free trial. So if you sign up for the 30-day free trial, you can still come next week for free. You don't have to pay us anything in order to attend. But otherwise, I think if there are no questions, I'm going to let everybody go because we all run businesses and we have things to do. Thank you so much for coming and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Same to you, Tamron. Thanks for organizing this incredible platform. And yeah, I look forward to engaging with you all. I think, again, Tamron, in about 2 weeks' time, where we come together for panel discussion. So looking forward to that as well and hoping to see all of you that we've met today on the line as well.
Yes, bring all your questions and come back in 2 weeks' time.
And next week, Tamron session.
Yeah, that one too. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.